Growing up, reading was one of those things I was naturally drawn to, but it was always a difficult habit to maintain. But I somehow managed to read through the entire Harry Potter series in my teenage years, and I won numerous reading competitions as a child in school. But as I got older and enrolled for law school and later got employed, reading kind of took a backseat, and this was a problem I had to solve. So over the years, I've developed a few hacks that have helped me get back into a consistent reading habit, even as a busy person working full-time. So in this video, I will share with you those tips or hacks, if you will, that will help any reader, whether new or otherwise, to get back into a consistent reading habit in a way that is natural, encouraging, and fulfilling. Starting with the first tip, which is to make a reading list of books you actually like. You'll forgive me if this sounds overly simplistic, but the biggest mistake you could make is to pick up a book just for the sake of it. Just because a book was written, it doesn't mean it was necessarily written for you. It does not mean that you were the intended or desired audience. For us to be able to pick up a consistent reading habit, we need to be attuned to our interests. You need to be aware of the subjects and topics you're interested in, themes and genres, and what naturally draws your attention. Reading philosophy when you're not even a thinker or a philosophical idealistic person may deter you from continuing to read. This may not be because you're a bad reader or that you don't like reading at all, but you just picked up the wrong book. You picked up the wrong content. Think about topics you like and search them online and see if you cannot find any material that is aligned to those topics or interests. So in building a reading list, we're making a mini database that we can go back to later and sort of pick those titles that pique our interests so we can start with our reading journey. It is much more practical to ease yourself into a reading habit rather than to force yourself into one. So reading a book that is not aligned to your interest will be a much harder way to even finishing our books or continuing with building a consistent reading habit. So the trick with this step is not to overthink things, but we're just building a mini database that we can get back to later when we want to pick up a book we want to read. So it is important to know the things that we're interested in, the things that we like, so that we can go out in the world and look for books that will feed into those interests. Reading is just like consuming any other content. Think of building a reading list like a watch list on your favorite streaming platform. When you're on Netflix or Prime or Hulu or Disney, you don't watch everything that's on offer, but you go through the different UIs and you look for the stuff that interests you and you save them to your watch list to watch them later. So with building a reading list, there really are no restrictions except with being attuned to your interests. So you can go online on community forums and see what books are being discussed by the various communities there, or you can look at social media and see what book influencers or booktubers are speaking about. You can read book reviews and also check year-end lists to see what books interest you and put those into your mini database to get back to at a later stage. So with making a reading list, we're really not trying to overthink things or be overly idealistic about our approach. I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think you can judge it by its title. A book's title will immediately let you know whether that's a topic or a theme or a genre that you would be interested in. So be attuned to your own interests and listen to that inner voice that would tell you whether a book would interest you or not. So make a reading list of books you actually like, fine-tune your mini database, and that will move us on to the next step, which is to always carry a book with you. Of all the tips that I'm going to give to you today, always having a book with me is the one that has helped me the most to get back into a consistent reading habit. Whenever I go to work or go to class, I always make sure that I have a physical copy of a book with me so that it is available for me to read at any time. This is obviously impractical for other situations, like when you're invited to a formal dinner or going to church or going on a date, but I think it is highly practical to have a physical copy of a book as part of your daily carry. You can put it in your handbag, slip it in your backpack, or put it in your car, whatever it is that works for you. Make sure that you always have a physical copy of a book with you that you can read at any time, any place. What this does is that it reduces the resistance of getting into reading. A lot of us think that to read you need to sit in some corner somewhere and light a candle and play soft music so you can read. These high expectations that have been placed on the act of reading themselves are the ones that can kind of make us lazy or just discouraged to get into reading. So always having a book with you is a helpful way to ease yourself into your reading sessions. How this also helps us is that in those dead spaces of time where we really have nothing important to do, we can just kill time by reading a book instead of always going to our social media or opening up our phones for the 100th time. I know I'm guilty of this. Whenever I have dead spaces of time or I'm in between appointments or there's really nothing important to do, the first thing is to pick up my phone and mindlessly scroll through social media. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but having a book as an alternative to going on social media is one thing that can help move us along into getting into a consistent reading habit. The point with this is not to be overly strict with ourselves and restrict ourselves from checking in with our loved ones or going on social media and enjoying our TikToks and our YouTubes, but it is to have an alternative thing to do as opposed to always going to social media. Yes, we can still go on our TikToks and YouTubes, but I think having a book to read can help move us along into building a consistent reading habit. And this will move us along to the third step, which is to read in small sessions. To be able to get into a consistent reading habit, or to lower the barrier to entry of reading itself, we have to deformalize reading. We have to let go of the formalistic ways we approach reading and just simplify it and integrate it into our daily routine, just like any other thing you do as part of your day. When I'm between appointments, there's always a moment for me to read a page here and a chapter there, and before you know it, I've made significant progress with the book that I'm reading at the time. The popular thing is to schedule huge chunks of time so you can get through a significant portion of the book, but I have found that reading in small sessions or reading in bite-sized portions has helped me get much further ahead with the books that I'm reading. So whether I'm commuting to work or going to class or I'm in between appointments, there's always a moment for me to read a page or two. And when there's nothing interesting I could do, or there's nothing interesting on my phone, I find comfort in having to open up a book and continue reading whatever it is that I'm consuming at the time. Treating reading as part of my daily routine has made it less intimidating for me and has made the experience of reading a seamless one. So there's no pressure. When I feel like reading, I pick up a book and I read it because it's always available to me. And when I feel tired or I feel I need a break, I can always put it down and wait for another opportunity during my day, and I could pick up where I left off and continue reading. This for me has worked with getting me farther along with my reading journey. The thing with reading in small sessions is that there is no pressure. You don't have to finish a chapter in one sitting or finish an entire book in a week, but that you could reliably place yourself into building a reading habit in a natural and encouraging way. Of course, this will be different from person to person. So if you're a person who prefers scheduling, you can schedule a reading session and prepare your environment to make sure that you can get into reading your book and minimize any potential distractions. So read in small sessions, read in bite-sized portions. I have found that that has helped me the most to get into a consistent reading habit. And this will move us on to the fourth step, which is to not overcommit. The quickest way to make reading feel like a chore is to place unreasonable expectation on yourself. It is cool to be able to finish a book in a week or two, but if you're not a fast reader, or if you're just in the beginning stages of your reading journey, this is highly impractical of an expectation to place on yourself. We don't have to impress anyone other than ourselves. Reading is for our self-development and pleasure. So pace yourself. Reading, believe it or not, can create some kind of burnout. There's already a lot of things we do during the day and our brains get overwhelmed. Reading and finishing a book in a week is the cool thing to do, but you don't have to place those expectations on yourself. So pace yourself gently and make sure that you place reasonable expectations with your reading journey. Another way of overcommitting is committing to reading a book until you finish it before you can pick up another book. This is the one thing that I struggle with. I struggle so much with opening up a second book if I haven't finished the one that I'm reading. And the disadvantage with that is that when you get through a book and you realize that this is not for you, or you're not enjoying it, or it is not as helpful to you as you thought it would, because you've placed this unreasonable expectation on yourself, you now force yourself into finishing this book. And so you don't have to commit to one book, you can commit to multiple reads, but make sure that this strategy can work for you. I've seen other people do it. They read 2-3 books at the same time. I haven't gotten to that level yet, and I'm still trying to build that into my reading habit. But if that works for you, then it is more than okay to do that, as long as you reliably progress yourself towards reading more consistently. The opposite is also true. If you struggle with paying attention and you have a low attention span, reading multiple books at a time may not really be helpful for you, but what would be helpful is to commit to one thing and finish that thing before you move on to the next thing. It is also okay to take a break. If what you're reading is overwhelming or the content is just too deep and you need a little bit of time to digest it, it is okay to put your book down for a couple of days and get back to it at a later stage. There really are no expectations except for the ones we place on ourselves. And if you want to start with implementing these reading tips right away, please click on the video linked on the screen of the books that I have loved enough to talk about here on YouTube. So please click on the video linked on the screen and I'll see you there.